So if you find it hard to calm down, to still the thinking mind, one of the great skillful means is to just imagine yourself on your deathbed, come to the end of your life, and you know that you're about to pass away. And this is a great perception to have because we never know how much time we have in this world. So getting used to this idea is very useful. And if you are lying on your deathbed, what you know is that you have no future in this world. And because you have no future in this world, there's nothing here of interest to you. And when there's nothing of interest in this world, there isn't very much to think about anymore. So see if you can use these simple, skillful ideas just to calm yourself down and guide your mind towards peace and tranquility. And as your mind calms down and you reach a degree of clarity, you will notice that the breath is already there. And when you notice the breath is there, just carry on the awareness of the breath. Don't focus on the breath. Focus means too much willpower. Just keep the awareness with the breath and allow this beautiful companion of the breath to move forward with you onto this path of calmness and stillness. So, coming close to the end of the meditation, so please just take a few, half a minute or so, just to evaluate your meditation so far. Try to understand the causality, underlying peace, underlying the joy of the meditation practice. Try to see the connection between the success of the meditation and the causes behind it. Okay, so let's see what happens tonight. Start from the top and just make our way down. Okay, dear Ajahn, why do you think does the breath play such a central role in meditation? What can the breath teach us that other forms of meditation cannot? That's a good question. Why is it so central a part? I suppose, I don't know, I can just guess. I think it is a very natural thing. Yeah, it is always there. It's kind of a very obvious thing to focus on, I suppose. And the great thing about the breath is that it tends to calm down. Yeah, as you calm down, the breath calms down. So it's like you are following an object that is becoming gradually more still. So it kind of helps you to move in that direction towards stillness. There are other forms of meditation sometimes used, like mantras and that sort of thing, where you repeat a word, like Buddha and that sort of stuff, and any kind of word really will do the job. But it is a more coarse kind of meditation. Yeah, it is not as obvious to make the transition to the joy and to the nimittas and these kind of things. But with the breath, it's kind of seamless because it is very subtle to begin with, whereas a word of meditation is far less subtle. The metta meditation, you can do that, but in the suttas, the metta meditation is more like an outcome of breath meditation. Yeah? It's something quite profound that happens down the track. It's not something that you really do from scratch in the suttas. The idea of doing metta from scratch is more a kind of commentarial thing. You find that in the Visuddhimagga, but in the suttas it comes after you have found already profound peace in ordinary breath meditation. The suttas always also contains meditations like the body contemplation, which you can do, but it's not really required. Like pulling the body apart and that sort of stuff. And it is the idea there is to lose some attachment to the body, obviously. So that is something that can be done. Some people like that. I don't think I would really recommend it unless you feel a particular need for it. Breath is good enough. So something like that. It might be behind this. And sometimes it's, because the Buddha teaches it, and because he seems to have used the breath meditation as his own meditation practice, it seems like that's, ultimately that's what it comes down to. It's part of it is just an article of faith, really, confidence in the Buddha, and then you follow it along as a consequence. Yeah, so I hope that helps. Okay. Next one. Dear Ajahn, in the four jhanas, fourth jhana refers to as upekkha, ekaggata. Are the sensual pleasures removed? How does it happen? It is removed long before you come to the fourth jhana. Yeah, when you enter the first jhana, all the sensory, not really the sensory pleasures are removed, but all sensory experience is removed. Yeah, I don't like this translation, sensual pleasure, so much, because it focuses too much on kind of the desire, the craving aspect, the pleasures of these things, but really it is the entire sensory world that is removed. That is what is so interesting about it. And that happens already in the first jhana, not the fourth one, because the first jhana, the formula for the first jhana is vivicheva kamehi. Yeah, kamehi. Ehi ending is a plural ending, so it means the sensual, all the senses, the five senses, it's a plural ending, whereas the sensual desire, the craving, is actually singular. So there's a difference between the singular and the plural. The plural signifies the five senses. So vivicheva means like removed from, as you say here, removed from, or dissociated from, or separated from. All of these are kind of standard translations. So separated from the five senses happens already in the first jhana. How does it happen? Well, it just happens, it happens through automatically in many ways, because as you watch the breath and you start to enjoy the breath meditation, what you are enjoying is something that is different from the five sense world. You are, when the joy starts to rise, that already is called niramisa sukha in Pali. Niramisa means spiritual happiness. Amisa literally means flesh, so it means happiness that has not to do with the flesh. So spiritual happiness is what you might call it. That is already growing, and as that kind of grows, you become less and less interested in the sensory world, because there is another world that is more powerful and more interesting. And as that inner happiness of the other world becomes stronger and stronger, the five senses just disappear gradually, because it cannot really measure up against the inner experience of happiness and joy, and upekkha, as you say here, and ekaggata, and these qualities. So it happens almost naturally. In the beginning, you need to help the process a little bit by reminding yourself of the downsides of that world. But the deeper you go in meditation, the more automatic these things actually become. So you just keep on watching the breath, watching and watching and watching. And maybe you nudge a little bit here and there. Okay, the sensory world, not so interesting. Tiny nudge of perception. Then you carry on in your meditation, and stage by stage, until one day, bang, it's all gone. That's kind of the idea here. So I hope that helps. Okay, dear Ajahn, how does one cope with the loss of a loved one, be it a close family member or even a pet? Thank you. How do you cope with that? One of the things to do is to remind yourself that the person, if it is a loved one that was close to you, it is likely to have been a good person, or a good pet, whatever it was. And usually good beings of any kind, they usually have a good rebirth. So one of the things to do is to rejoice. Wow, well done. Well done, you have lived really well. Now you have probably gone to a destination that you deserve. So you are happy on their behalf for having lived well and done the right thing and probably gone on to a good place. And maybe sometimes it's kind of funny. I think sometimes, when someone has passed away recently, sometimes there is still a connection with those beings. And maybe they are around, maybe they are still kind of watching over you. And they're telling you, don't worry, yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, relax, don't cry, well, for goodness sake. Why are you crying? I'm just right here. Yeah, I'm good. And if you had seen that, you'd probably be laughing at yourself. Why you're so sad? Because they're just smiling at you and saying, chillax, yeah, it's okay. So it's kind of weird, yeah, how you kind of slight shift in perception can make these things just seem so different from what they otherwise would be. So the other way to overcome it is to have a sense of gratitude. Yeah, thank you so much for being here for me with these years. Even if it's just a pet, yeah, thank you for being my pet, my steady companion over these years. Just thinking that your life would not have been the same without that person or without that pet. They have enriched your life and made your life better. Yeah, so you feel a sense of gratitude almost towards that pet. It's a bit like having a life-changing experience. Sometimes we have the opportunity to do something which is really life-changing. It can be things in the world where you experience something exceptional. It can be something that happens on a meditation retreat like this. You get a glimpse of something deeper sometimes in your meditation. Yeah, I know some of you have that. I've already been talking to you, and that's marvelous when you have those things. And then when you come out of that meditation, you don't grieve afterwards. Actually, you feel enriched by that experience. Yeah? You feel like you have seen something really worthwhile of seeing. You have lived something which has done something to your life to enrich your life. And in the same way as you have gratitude towards that meditation experience or that special experience in your life that that kind of lifts you out of your ordinary existence. In the same way, you have gratitude towards someone who has enriched your life, a person, a pet, or whatever it is. Thank you for being around. You made my life better. You guided me in the right way here. Yeah, you did something to do something positive in my life. And then you can change the grief into gratitude. And the last thing to remember in Buddhism is that sometimes when someone passes away, sometimes, when it is your turn to pass away, sometimes we are even reunited with these people because there is a bond there, and we tend to, often we get reborn in the same families. Yeah, so it's sometimes just like a holiday apart. Yeah, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Yeah, it's good, right? So you should say, okay, good. Okay, we have some time apart. Maybe then afterwards we'll be even better. So there are lots of ways of thinking about this. Death is not really anywhere near as sad as we think. I think it's a cultural thing. Yeah, we live in a society where we're used to kind of thinking that, oh, God gave us life and now we are parted forever after, or we have this kind of cultural ideas, cultural biases of why death is such a terrible thing. But it's not really. It's like, it's just another stage in life, really. You pass away, you carry on somewhere else. It's not such a big deal. Sometimes death is really nice. And this is why, it is really, this is what, following what Ajahn Brahmali says. And I think that's true. If you go through a little death contemplation in a meditation, sometimes it can be really beautiful. You feel like you're releasing something. And if that is what death really is like, then it can be a beautiful experience. Giving up of all the burdens of life and just moving on towards something lighter, something better. Anyway, okay, so good luck. See how you go. The Ajahn, number one. Okay, number one, number two. Okay, there's only two, there's three maybe. I'm not sure how many there is. Let's see what happens. What are some of the skillful means you have used to reduce your ego over the years as a monk, with the privileged upbringing, great education and status of your early years? What are some of the challenges you've had? Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think I have probably too much ego still, so you don't really know me all that well. You'd be surprised sometimes. It is a problem. Yeah, I had a good upbringing, and everything was very good. And so, I guess you try just to see yourself as an ordinary human being. You start to see that many of the things that you may have, that you have the privileges you've had, they are just temporary. In a past life, I was probably a very different kind of person. In a future life, you'll be different again. These things come and go. There's nothing special about you just because you have some privileges in this life. That's not really the deal. We are much more in common than we have the things that actually separate us. So this is a temporary little thing. It's just a blip in the big samsaric overview. There's nothing there to be proud of, to have to an ego about. We try to see each other as all as human beings. We're all the same. These things don't really make any difference. So when you reflect like that enough, you start to see things differently, and you don't take yourself so seriously anymore. One of the things I often like to think, someone asked me today why, if it was difficult to become a monk, and I said to them, well, for me it was really easy. It was because I think I was probably a monk in a past life. So for me, just a habit, becoming a monk. That's kind of a nice idea. It takes away the kind of the ego in it. I become a monk because I am really smart. I'm the wisest. I know what's going on there. That's just silly. And I think the idea of it being a habit actually is a very kind of useful reflection. And what that did to me, I told this person, I said, what it did to me was it made me a bit worried, because if it is a habit, I'm just following habit, then is it a trap? Do I know what I'm doing? And that made me really investigate the teachings of the Buddha even more. That's probably one of the reasons I've been really interested in these teachings all along, and to really know that this is the real deal. I'm not just kind of fooling myself. I'm just not following the kind of inner program without really evaluating what is going on. So that is kind of the right attitude. But more interesting than that is that when you think about yourself, if I was a monk in the past life, I always ask myself, well, where would I have been a monk? And it's very hard to say, but it would have been maybe in Sri Lanka, maybe in Thailand or East Asia somewhere. Maybe I was a nun in the past life, And when you start to look at it that way, it starts to take down so many of these barriers that exist between people. The barriers of gender, the barriers of race, the barriers of nationality, the barriers of all of these things that we kind of use to kind of divide each other from each other. If you see yourself in that different culture, in a different place, different time, with a different gender, it kind of, it makes us much more close together. If all of these things are already in you, you have been there before, and unless you get out of this samsaric existence, you will be there again. How can you treat other people differently if that's you? And this is the beautiful thing. It removes barriers between people. And I think this is such an important thing. And if you go around to be proud of, what you kind of, were fortunate enough to grow up with, or whatever, even if you have achieved it through education or whatever, then you are kind of just grasping onto superficial stuff. The deeper stuff is much more, the reality is we have far more in common than what separates us, and we're always changing. So the ego grasping onto things is kind of crazy. It blocks the ability of having metta. It blocks the ability of compassion for other people when you have that. It was an interesting study that was done some time ago. This was done in New York, and they looked at various types of cars and how these different cars, with a driver inside, how they behaved in traffic. And one of the things that they discovered was that the more expensive the car was, the more badly behaved the driver was. That's interesting. Isn't that really interesting? And they figured out the reason was because if you drive an expensive car, it means you have a bigger ego. You take yourself more seriously. You feel more entitled, and so you can do whatever you want. So this is the danger of this kind of ego thing. It means you have less compassion for other people. You have less metta. You have less understanding, and it becomes very destructive as a consequence. So you really you use this kind of skillful means to overcome that. Getting our own way, manipulating to do this is common in the world, all for our own happiness. I see myself doing this sometimes, and after listening to some of the teachings so far, realize this is not a good trait. That's true, and I think a lot of people do this a lot of the time, and it's something that we probably should be aware of. So apart from asking myself, what is my motivation? Can anything else help? So help getting rid of this, basically. Nip this in the bud, that's what it's saying. Okay, sorry. So, I think when you manipulate. It's people will also feel that to some extent around you, and it actually is destructive for relationships when you do that, in the long run especially. Because people have some feeling about what is going on. It's impossible to be manipulated without having some degree of understanding what is happening. So it is really kind of destructive. So try to avoid that. And sometimes you get really frustrated if you try to manipulate, it doesn't work. It gets very frustrating because you're trying, it doesn't work. But on the other hand, if it does work, then it's kind of, then it's kind of a bit destructive. So either way, it is problematic. So just understand that for your own long-term happiness and for the happiness around those around you, it is far better to avoid that and to not to do these things. But sometimes it can be really subtle, the way we say things, the way just kind of little things in our body language, and kind of it's very subtle sometimes, this manipulation that we do with other people. So you have to be kind of gradually observant of yourself, be clear about what is going on, and then gradually withdraw from those kind of things, because it is actually, I think, destructive to do that. Anyway, good luck here. Okay, okay. Dear Ajahn Brahmali, how are you? Okay, so I'm not going to answer that one, so I'm just going to leave that one out because whatever I say is going to become dodgy. So my question is regarding the first sutta we studied, i.e. future perils. If we lay people and monastics practice well, then does it mean we can stop these from happening here? Or is it the case that we may delay it, the perils taking place, as it is still happening anyway? Thank you, Metta. You can't stop these things. The things, the dhamma is going to be. Everything in the world is impermanent. Everything is uncertain. Everything is out of control. You're not going to be able to stop Buddhism from declining and eventually coming to an end. That is the nature of things. Maybe we can slow it down a little bit, If one person does the right thing, it will affect others, and more people do the right thing, the better. And we will kind of carry on in a good way. So that is, so regardless, we should be doing it. But stopping it, that is absolutely impossible. The other thing, it is good karma. It is good for each one of us. If we live according to these things, we are doing really well for ourselves as well. It's not just about the Dhamma, it's also about our own practice. If we are part of the backsliding which destroys the Dhamma, it's bad. It's obviously a very negative thing. We're destroying probably what is the most valuable thing in the world. Nothing is more valuable than this. Why? Because nothing gives more happiness than this if you practice it all the way to the end. So you want to uphold this, you want to support it, you want to do the right thing. And then you are kind of helping out with kind of keeping this tradition going for as long as possible. But it is worthwhile sometimes reflecting how impermanent these things are, even the teaching of the Buddha, how unreliable it is. And sometimes we talk about you need to practice over many lifetimes to be able to see these teachings fully. And but be careful, because many lifetimes you don't know what's going to be left of these teachings the next life. You come back here. If you do come back here, all of these things are so uncertain. So now is the opportunity. It is one of those great little thoughts to kind of help us, get going on this path, basically. So okay. So that is that. Go on to the next one. Dear Ajahn Brahmali, thank you for your teachings, sharing the many ways to the elements of the Buddha's teaching reinforce and support each other. Fascinating and inspiring. I would like to understand why the Arahants, who have perfect wisdom and compassion, enter parinibbana rather than work to help other people for progress on the path. Many thanks. Okay, so why do Arahants do this? Is it a choice of the Arahant, or is it just nature that takes its course? And the answer is number two. It's just nature taking its course. The Arahant has no say in the matter. Even if the Arahant wants to hang around, they probably don't want to hang around anyway, but even if they did, when they die, that's it. they are out of here. That's kind of the result of being an Arahant. Why? Because you have given up all craving. There's no craving there. Craving is the thing that projects you into the future, into a new life. Without a craving, there's nothing you can do. You are going to be out of here. Yeah, you are finished as far as this samsara is concerned. You cannot hang around. And this is one of the problems with the Bodhisattva ideal. Yeah, we have the Bodhisattva ideal, which exists both in Mahayana Buddhism and also in Theravada. And there are many people who say they practice the Bodhisattva path, also in Theravada Buddhism. But it is a bit dangerous, kind of theoretically. And the reason why it is dangerous is that you only understand the Dhamma when you become a stream enterer. But if you become a stream enterer, well, then you only have 7 lives maximum. Yeah, you're not going to hang around for much longer. So if you're going to be a bodhisattva who hangs around for eons and eons, helping all living beings attain nibbana, well, the only way you can do that is by not becoming a stream enterer. But then you don't understand the Dhamma. Yeah, you see the problem here. So the thing is problematic. Yeah, it is not, how are you going to be able to succeed with that kind of ideal if you don't know what's going on here? So for that reason, I think the Bodhisattva path is it's not taught by the Buddha, first of all. That's obviously a very important argument for not taking it too seriously. And secondly, to me, it looks like there's a kind of contradiction at the heart of that whole path. And for that reason, it is problematic. So that's why the Arahants don't hang around. They are examples to the world. They're here right now. And then they kind of just disappear afterwards. Okay. We have quite a few questions, so let's see how we go. Dear Ajahn Brahmali, number 1, in the Great 40 Sutta, what is the meaning of ripening in the acquisitions? It means that you get reborn. The acquisitions are the 5 khandhas. Yeah, that's the main thing. You acquire the 5 khandhas when they get reborn. That's why they're called acquisitions. It's a bit of a technical term, and this is what, when you see a word like acquisitions, it's a bit sort of off-putting because you wonder, what on earth? This is kind of weird, yeah? But that's basically what it means. It means nothing kind of very special. So the 5 khandhas are the main acquisitions, and then anything else you acquire in life are also acquisitions in a broader sense, yeah, whatever that might be. Number 2, in the section Right Livelihood, are the items given under Wrong Livelihood scheming given in the Vinaya for the bhikkhus? If so, is the right livelihood only applicable to lay disciples? Is it given in the Vinaya? No, not really. I have never. It's a strange thing that really is found, as far as I know, only in this particular sutta. It's kind of a little bit strange. What the Buddha does say, however, I think it's in the suttas, I think it's in the Brahmajala Sutta, the first sutta of the Digha Nikaya. There's a long section on wrong livelihood. And there he talks about some of the similar kind of things. Yeah, you make a living by all kind of bad ways. For example, as a monastic, you're not supposed to make a living by what's it called? By prognostication, kind of trying to figure out the future, what the future holds. And by acting as a doctor, for example, yeah, helping people with kind of illnesses and things. So your job as a monastic is to practice the path properly and maybe to teach, yeah, if you want to teach on top of that. These are really the 2 things. And then you get support in return, and just the support that you need to kind of carry on the monastic life. So I think right livelihood is applicable to monastics and lay people. It's just that it is a bit different, for lay people compared to monastics. That's really all. Okay. Okay, dear Ajahn, Lumpu Ganha story of the snake is true. Okay. So, okay, good. So I guess, were you there maybe at the time? I'm not sure. So
Okay, here's the story. Let's see what it says. In 2017, we met him in Thailand. He related the story himself. Okay, wow, that's pretty cool, isn't it? He said, yes, the snake came to me and raised his head. When I was meditating, other monks saw this. I showed metta to him and asked him to go. So he went. That's pretty cool, isn't it? So you were there and heard this. Great, that's really marvelous. Now the story says the snake was 3 meters and so on. It was maybe 1.5 meter. What did he relate the story? Okay, so why did he relate the story? He said to show metta and to have good meditation. You too can do this type of thing. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so you too can do this kind of thing. You hear that? Yeah, everyone can do this. So don't try it straight away. Do quite a lot of meditation first of all. We will take a trip down to. Have they got this kind of large snakes in Perth Zoo? Yeah, we can take a field trip to Perth Zoo, and we can test it out, see what happens. And please bring out your most dangerous cobra, and we'll see what we can see what happens. Okay, we're not going to test our luck, I think, so we might not do that. But anyway. Thank you for saying that. That's great. So so there you are. So sometimes when you hear from someone who was there, then it helps to make these things more real, doesn't it? So great. Okay. Dear Ajahn, what is meant by acquisition in the sutta read so far? So we just heard that, so that is done. Dear Ajahn, my right view is getting straighter, but I have yet to come around to rebirth, okay? Was there something that made it click for you, or is it something we have to have faith in until we see it for ourselves? Yes, it's good to be honest about this, that sometimes these things are not don't happen straight away, and we can't really make sense of them, and that's fine. We should not try to have faith in things just because the Buddha says. We shouldn't force ourselves to believe stuff, because that becomes destructive on the path. Yeah, eventually we have to suppress our natural feelings, and when you do that, then actually it does much more harm than good for you. So it's good that you're honest about that and just go with the flow. So what you have to do sometimes is just to get used to the idea, and maybe read some stories about these things and see some of the maybe even scientific evidence for these things. There is evidence for these things. And it's important to remember that one of the reasons why it is so hard to believe in these things is because we have all grown up in a culture where these ideas are foreign. People don't believe in these things, and we are conditioned to see the world in a certain way. We tend to think that our view is solid. This is solid because I have investigated and done it rightly, but views are very often based on feelings and based on conditioning and based on habits. And very often, one day, you may actually believe in rebirth very firmly, and you wonder how you can never believe in it. And then you have gone maybe too far in the other direction, So it's these things are much more ambiguous and flexible than we think they are. They seem so solid. This is my view. I have good reasons for having this view, but are you sure about that? Or is it just a feeling that this view makes you feel good because you grew up in this way, because you've been conditioned in this way? So just go with it and see what happens. Don't force yourself to believe in these things. That is counterproductive. Read about it. Hear some more stories about it. Think about it a little bit, and just see what happens. And if you have to reject it down the line, then you have to reject it. And that's then what you have to do, and you shouldn't force yourself even then. But if you come around to the idea, then great. Then you're aligning your ideas with the view of the Buddha. For me, it was never really an issue. I never really had any trouble with the idea of rebirth. For me, it seemed quite okay. I never really had an upbringing where these kind of things were no-nos. So for me, it wasn't a big problem. I used to be an atheist before I became a monk. But again, I didn't really have anything against rebirth even then when I was an atheist. So there you are. So yeah, so just gradually, and then see what happens. Dear Ajahn Brahmali, can you please comment on the vibratory energies of the cosmos? Is it your belief that as one follows the Noble Path, this cosmic energy within gradually increases in intensity? Is Om the eternal goal from a vibratory sense? Okay, gee, that's an interesting question. The vibratory energies of the cosmos. I think it is better than to think of the energies of the cosmos, better to think of the internal energies of the person. Because what we are trying to do is to energize our minds. And how do you know that your mind is energetic? Well, it is that mind where you feel that you have energy, you feel that you could go out and do lots of things. It's like the energy of the body, but it comes from the inside instead. And that energy can build up to become incredibly powerful. And of course, there comes a point in your meditation when the meditation, it feels like you do you become one with the whole universe. That's what it feels like, because all the boundaries between you and everything else are taken away. So in that sense, there is this kind of sense of cosmic energy within you, because there are no limits anymore to that energy. As far as the cosmos itself is concerned, does the cosmos itself have a vibratory energy? Maybe. I don't know. Depends what the cosmos is. I don't really know if anyone is really entirely clear about what the cosmos even is. There is one interesting philosopher who argues that the cosmos is a kind of universal mind, a large mind, maybe Mahabrahma or something like that. And what we see as the cosmos is the visual perception of Mahabrahma. I don't know about that. It's kind of an interesting idea. It's just pure speculation probably, but it's kind of interesting. So is there a kind of energy in that cosmos? Maybe, maybe not. But don't worry too much about it, because really that's not what we're trying to tap into. We're trying to tap into the inner energy in our own mind. That's what we're trying to develop. Om, is that the internal goal from the vibratory sense? Om is I think a Hindu idea that they also have maybe in Tibetan Buddhism. And in Hinduism, the ideas are very different, because in Hinduism they have this idea that the self and the cosmos are one, and that there is no distinction between the two. So these kind of ideas probably make more sense in a Hindu context or a Advaita Vedanta context, which is like the meditation school of Hinduism. It makes more sense in that context than it does in Buddhism, I think. So we're probably a little bit on the edge here, moving towards a different kind of religion than Buddhism when we move on to these kind of ideas. Dear Ajahn, how are we supposed not to overindulge when there's 6 different kinds of desserts? Can we have boiled frog tomorrow instead? It's hard to get hold of boiled frog around here. They're not kind of available, and so you're going to have to do with those 6 kind of desserts, I'm afraid. Don't worry about it. Please indulge a little bit in the food. Enjoy your food. This is certainly allowable on a retreat like this. As I mentioned before, the only time that you are overindulging is when you kind of sit thinking about those desserts during meditation. That's when you know you have a problem. But if you enjoy the desserts at the time, no problem whatsoever. Go for it, enjoy it. One of the kind of strange things in the suttas that caught my eye many years ago is this: the fact that the suttas, they say that when you come out of a deep meditation experience, a jhana or samadhi experience, everything seems much better. The food seems much better. Maybe that's why you're really enjoying the food. Your meditation is going well. Is that the reason? Maybe, I don't know. And your kind of simple your simple rag robes, yeah, or whatever it is you're wearing is kind of really comfortable and seems like kind of the best kind of clothes you ever had, and etc., etc. Everything seems really remarkable. The fermented cow's urine that you have for medicine, wow, really nice medicine, yeah. This is kind of the standard medicine in the Vinaya for the monastics. Wow, fermented cow's urine. I'm so lucky to have that again today. Yeah. So everything seems different because your mind brightens up, and when your mind brightens up, the whole world outside brightens up together with the bright mind. It comes together in this way. Yeah. This is kind of one of the strange things, because you think that, well, you know, you're no longer interested in the sensory world, and you're not really interested in it, in the sense that you don't crave for it, you're not attached to it. Yet at the same time, the sensory world is actually more delightful. Isn't that kind of strange? It's a strange kind of, you know, how this actually works. It's more beautiful, but you're less attached because you know something far better. So this is kind of the cool thing about this. So boiled frog, yeah, and I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, even Ajahn Brahmali, who was a really tough monk in his early days and who had good meditation, everything, even he kind of boiled frog was one step too far. So he has that famous story where he saw this monk sitting next to him, and he was kind of holding up this boiled frog and kind of squeezing it a bit, and he squeezed it in the wrong place. And the frog urinated all over his rice. And then he kind of lost his appetite a little bit after that. So there you are. That's what happens sometimes with boiled frogs. So I wouldn't really recommend boiled frogs. Anyway, thank you for the good question. So next one. Dear Ajahn, thank you for your teachings. Thank you for thanking me for my teachings. Ajahn, is there such a thing as medicinal meditation? Medicinal meditation. All meditation is medicinal, yeah? And because we are learning to have a better attitude. Yeah, we're having a better attitude towards everything, towards our body, towards our life, towards ourselves. And a lot of illness comes about, I think it's fairly clear, through wrong attitudes, through negative states of mind, through, you know, self-loathing. Some people don't have a good opinion about themselves. They have a kind of, you know, look down on themselves or whatever. And all of that leads to big problems. There's a beautiful video available on YouTube by a lady called Anita Morjani, who gave a talk on TEDx later on. And she talks about her story, which is kind of a remarkable story about this. She is an Indian descent living in Hong Kong. And she was in hospital and she was just about to die. I mean, she was like 4th stage cancer everywhere in her body, and she was having fluid in her lungs. She could barely breathe, and she was really on the way out. And because she was so ill, she had an out-of-body experience. And when she had an out-of-body experience, she realized that for some reason, she realized that the reason why she had all these problems was because of her mental attitude. Yeah, she was just down on herself, and she was always afraid of everything, and kind of life and everything was really wrong. And then when she came back again into her body and she realized what the problem was, her attitude to herself had completely changed. Yeah, she was kind of started to like herself, to love herself, not to fear the world anymore. And from that moment, because her attitude changed so completely, the cancer tumor started to shrink. And within about 5 weeks, 80% of the tumors were gone. Yeah, within 5 weeks, she was riddled with cancer. And the doctors in the hospital had no explanation whatsoever for what was going on. To them, it was just completely weird what was happening. And eventually, she was completely free of that cancer. And then she started, touring around, talking about her experience. In one place, that was this TEDx talk that she gave somewhere. So there is a connection between the physical body and the mind that is very strong. So all meditation, if you practice it well, it leads to a betterment also of the body, not just the mind. There's a connection there. There is research apparently that shows that people who have a better attitude after an operation in hospital, they heal faster. So the mind has an effect on the body. There's no doubt about that. Maybe not always. There may be certain illnesses that you cannot do anything with because the karma or whatever is kind of too strong or whatever. I don't know, but sometimes it does have a powerful effect on the body. So there is medicinal meditation in that sense. All meditation is medicinal. But the most medicinal meditation is obviously the metta meditation. Yeah, when you have metta for yourself, metta for all beings, because then you have this complete benevolence. You have no fear of anything in the world. You have no anger against anybody, and of course, then your body is going to be completely at ease. Yeah, and because of that, you have the best prospects of recovering from illnesses. So medicinal meditations. In Mahayana Buddhism, they have some meditations, the Baisajja Guru meditation. Baisajja means medicine. Guru is like teacher. So medicine Buddha. So that is kind of maybe a similar kind of thing. I'm not sure. But that is the way they kind of approach that. What is meant, and can you send metta to a particular part of your body to heal something? For example, chronic knee pain, etc. Maybe, maybe not. If you have chronic knee pain, if it is chronic, then I'm not sure. Possibly it will help. Yeah, I mean, if you have metta, anyway, metta is always going to be helpful because it is so pleasant that the pain doesn't penetrate so much. So it's going to be better. If it's chronic, then yeah, I'm sure what you mean by chronic, whether you mean it's always there or whether it's always there when you meditate. Maybe change your posture a little bit. Yeah, try a different posture, use a chair occasionally, something like that, and maybe that will help too. So can it help? Try it out, see if it works. Yeah, try to send metta to your knees and see if it actually has an effect. But sometimes it may work, sometimes it may not. It depends on your ability to bring forth the metta. It is not always so easy to do. Yeah, it really, people have various abilities in this. But try, see what happens, and then you'll find out. At the same time, knowing that your body is falling apart and it is the way things are. Yeah? So that is true. So that is obviously a very important thing, to know that this is the reality of the body. The more we accept the reality of things, the less we struggle against them. Yeah, and we just go with the flow of things. And that, of course, is very helpful. If we think that it is wrong to have pain in the knees, if we think it is wrong to get old, if we think it's wrong to get ill, then of course, then it's going to be much more problematic, because we think it should be different, and you're likely to get angry and upset. It shouldn't be this way. Why am I getting ill? I'm only 75 and getting ill already. Yeah, but you know what it's like with human beings, and so but illness is natural. It is part of the body. It's just part of the course. So you go with the flow. Yeah. You say to your doctor, doctor, something is right with me. I'm sick again today. Yeah. Like Ajahn Brahmali likes to say, there's so much truth to that. Yeah. There's nothing has gone wrong when you're sick. Nothing has gone wrong when the world has COVID. COVID comes into the whole world. Nothing has really gone wrong when there's climate change either. It's just things, the world is like this sometimes. Of course, we try to fix it, but nothing has really gone wrong either. And then we can live more at ease with the world. We can be less angry with things. We can just go with the flow of things. And then things tend to heal quicker as well. That's the beauty of it. So allowing it to be, doing our best to change it, but then not getting upset when it doesn't actually change because we can't do anything with it. Then you kind of win in all ways. Okay, dear Ajahn, are the Mangala Sutta, the Ratana Sutta, and the Metta Sutta from the Nikayas? If not, where are they from? Thank you. So these are three very famous suttas in the Pali. They are found in the suttas, but not in the four Nikayas. They're found in the fifth Nikaya, the Khuddaka Nikaya. Yeah, so for those of you who are not aware of the structure of the Pali canon, the Pali canon is the suttas in the Pali language that have been kept within Theravada Buddhism for 2,500 years or thereabouts. And these suttas are structured into 5 collections. One is the Digha Nikaya, which means the long collection, with long discourses. Then you have the Majjhima Nikaya, which is the middle-length collection. Then you have the Samyutta Nikaya, which is the connected discourses, the collection on connected discourses. You have the Anguttara Nikaya, which is the collection on numerical discourses. And then you have the Khuddaka Nikaya, which means the short collection. And that is the longest collection of all. Why is that? Probably because it started out as a really small collection and people kept on adding books. So it started out probably like there's a tiny collection like this. And then it grew over time. Because what happens in all schools of Buddhism is that there are more texts getting made over time. Scholars, whatever, they produce more text. So where shall we put those texts? Khuddaka Nikaya is a good place for that text. We back it into the Khuddaka Nikaya, and then Khuddaka, and now there's about 18 books in that Khuddaka Nikaya. Started with maybe 5 small volumes, now it's kind of 18 books, and one of those books in there is the Jatakas, and they're like kind of it's a massive thing. The Jatakas, there's one collection, is a really, really large. So it becomes really big after a while. So, but in that Khuddaka Nikaya, there are certain books that are earlier than the others, and the earlier of those texts, and you can know that on linguistic grounds and comparative grounds and all kind of things. The early parts is the Dhammapada, which I mentioned the other day. Therigatha are quite ancient, not everything, but parts of it are. Udana, which is like the inspired utterances, ancient. Itivuttaka, which can be translated as quotations. This is a book that was transmitted by a lay woman. It's kind of interesting. The vast majority of the suttas were transmitted by the monks originally. There's one text that was transmitted by a lay woman, and that is the Itivuttaka. It's full of small, little, beautiful little stories about the Buddha and various kind of things. And that is also very ancient. And then there is the Sutta Nipata, which is what we're talking about now. And this is where these 3 suttas are found in that Sutta Nipata. So it is a part of the Nikayas in that sense. How ancient are they? Are they as ancient as the first 4 Nikayas I mentioned, the long, the middle length, the connected, and the numerical? Maybe, maybe not. The way to investigate these kind of things is to look if there are parallel suttas elsewhere. For example, the sutta exist also in Chinese translation. Some of them exist in Tibetan translation. Some of them are found in various kind of languages, like Sanskrit. Like other languages you would never have heard of before, languages that died out a long time ago, like Sogdian and Khotanese and Uyghur. Uyghur is one of the languages. Uyghur is the kind of that group in China, exists in the east of the western Chinese provinces. So the Uyghur language, some of the suttas exist in that language. It's a very kind of all kind of languages. So what you do is you do comparative studies and you see if something exists in many different languages which belong to different schools. Well, then it seems like this has an origin which goes before the schools emerged. That's why there is a commonality. And the Ratana Sutta is found in Chinese translation, for example. Very similar to the Pali. It has an extra verse on the importance of samadhi, which is kind of interesting, not found in the Pali, but that exists in both. The Metta Sutta is only found in the Pali, not in Chinese translation, so we don't know how early that is. And the Mahamangala Sutta is, I'm not sure about the Mahamangala Sutta, to be honest, but as far as I know, that too does not exist outside of the Pali tradition. But they are all old. The question is exactly how old. They go a long, long way back. So it is a little bit, I guess, suppose, of uncertainty. The Ratana Sutta is probably the one that has the best pedigree in terms of age. Okay. Last question for today. The timing is great. Dear Ajahn, it seems the preliminary I thought keeps on reinforcing the delusion of self. In the progress of enlightenment, does the I thought just drop away or slowly dissolve? And did the Buddha transcend the mind, e.g. thinking, thinking processes on enlightenment. Thank you. Yeah. E.g. thinking processes when he became enlightened, presumably. Okay, so the I thought keeps reinforcing the delusion of self. Yes, that's true. So whenever you think in terms of me, you think in terms of your identity, who I am, that reinforces the delusion of self. It becomes stronger. Does the I thought just drop away? It is like everything else. It is slowly you have to give it up. Yeah, you reduce the ego slowly. Yeah? You reduce its scope. You start off by cutting away the sense of I in terms of the core sense of I that relates to this world. Yeah, and then you have a sense of I more focused on kindness. Yeah, you identify as a kind person, as a moral person. That's a kind of good identification. Yeah, better than identifying as some kind of dodgy scallywag or whatever. So you identify as a kind-hearted person. Yeah. And then you take it further, you identify with the inner happiness and joy, the metta that you might have. Yeah? So you gradually reducing the sense of I. Yeah? And when you identify with the metta already, you have gone beyond the I to a very large extent, because the metta is something which flows out into the world. You have very little self-centeredness at that point, because you have this marvelous metta for all beings outside of you. So it's kind of a gradual elimination. Then you come into the last point where the I is still hanging out in some kind of subtle way inside of you. And then you have the insight. And then when you have the insight of stream entry, that's when you know for the first time that the I is a delusion. But the interesting thing is that even then, after that, because that habit is so strong, so even though you know that the I is a delusion, the thought I is a delusion, you still think in terms of I sometimes, because the habit is so strong. You have to kind of remind yourself, wait, there is no I, okay, and then the mind kind of carries on. So that is the difference between stream entry and arahatship, is the final elimination of this idea I am inside of one. Yeah. That is what happens as you progress in this way here. The Buddha transcends mind, e.g. the thinking progress on enlightenment. He transcends the mind. He transcends attachment to the mind. Yeah? So he transcends the I, as you said, the I, and also the attachment to the mind. So you're not attached to consciousness anymore, or any of these kind of things. So that is really what you transcend, yeah, and including the thinking process, including everything that is mental, has been transcended in the sense of no longer being attached to, no longer having a vested interest in these things. Okay, that is the last question. I have finished 1 minute early. Beep, just there. Okay, so you're missing out 1 minute of Dhamma. That's the way things are. So let's do the Arahant Samma Sambuddha together, and please have a nice night, have a good rest. We'll see you back again tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. Yeah. Arahant Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami